what do you think the next big thing is? Do you have any insight to that? Like what we're gonna see coming down the pike in?
You mean as the next like health
Yeah.
trend or modality?
Yeah.
Well, I would say I think this is it, but it's also happens to be kind of my area of interest right now, which is immune modulation and mitochondrial enhancement, basically. And what I mean by that is there are kind of these modalities that are like panacea modalities. So meaning like, okay, you know, if in the past, and I'm not knocking all this, I still love all of this, but let's just say, you know, you were going to get a cold. And so you would take, people would say, do vitamin C and you know, elderberry or whatever, like they would recommend. Yes, like it's an herb, it's one thing or a couple of things. Now we're kind of getting into the bigger picture situation of how can we actually kind of like fix our immune systems and our mitochondria that are struggling right now because our planet is so toxic, right? And our, as I like was telling you about before, of you get these opportunistic microbes, whether it's parasites or bacteria or viruses, which start to kind of like take hold in your system and things get really out of whack. So instead of just cherry picking, oh, you know, you have Epstein-Barr, you have Lyme, or you have this herpes virus, or you have this parasite, right? Which is still fine and fun, and I like all of that. But there's kind of like a higher level approach that I feel is like the new modern wave that's really kind of been ramping up over the last 5-7 years, which is like in peptide therapy, which also kind of includes like stem cells and exosomes, ozone therapy, things like methylene blue, which is like kind of, it's very inexpensive compared to other things like, you know, stem cells and exosomes are really expensive.
I've heard on Rick Rubin's podcast, Dr. Jack Krause,
Yeah.
talk about methylene blue. What is methylene blue?
So methylene blue is a dye salt. It's a synthetic substance. It is not natural. That was like discovered in the 1800s. And actually one of the ways that it was discovered as something special was there were these factory workers that worked with the dye. And they were like the only ones who weren't getting sick with some virus. And so they discovered that this dye has kind of magical properties. And then it was used as an anti-malaria drug in World War I and World War II. And it just has kind of all these really interesting uses, and it's not expensive. Like I do what's called a push of it. It's not an IV that drips down. It's like in a, you know, tube like this big, and they can also activate it with like red light and UV light, and then it gets pushed in a vein, so it's quick.
Wow.
And so it just does all these really interesting things. You know, it's antiviral, it's antimicrobial, it's your mitochondria actually is attracted to it. So it actually can upregulate, you know, ATP production, the energy that your cells make. So they have just found like a million things. It helps with like neurological issues. It helps with depression. It can help with a lot of mental and neurological problems. They've seen it help with Alzheimer's, autism. So it's definitely kind of getting a lot of attention right now.
Right. And that's a drug that's already been on the market
For a very long time, since the 1800s, I think it's been around.
Right. Wow.